during the session. Thank you. Okay, so the agenda for our meeting today, I will provide a quick, I'm Eva Kohler, I'm the fellowship manager for the Activate New York program. So I will kick us off today with a very quick overview of the Activate Fellowship. Some of you may already be familiar with this, so thank you for your patience. But for some of you, in case this is your first webinar, I want to just give a quick overview of who we are. We will then hear from Erin Lindgren, who is our partnerships manager for carbon management and climate, who will go a little bit deeper into Activate's work around carbon management, and from our managing director for Activate New York, who will go a little bit into how the Activate New York community in particular focuses within carbon management. We are fortunate on this call, and I'm realizing to have with us Julian Sachs, who is the co-founder of Banyu Carbon, and Rob Moak, who is the co-founder of Tensora, who will speak a little bit about their experience working on carbon management companies within the Activate network. And then we will hopefully have plenty of time at the end for a few details on applications and time to answer any questions that you may have. Feel free to drop questions in the Slack or in the chat throughout the meeting. The folks who are on the phone and not speaking will be doing some answering. And then we'll make sure that we cover anything that we missed at the end of the call. And this is the slide I thought was going to be next, but here we go, as these are the folks I mentioned who will be providing some more information about different aspects of the fellowship. So who is Activate? Activate's mission is to empower scientists to reinvent the world by bringing their research to market. Activate really focuses on you as entrepreneurs, your definition of success for your company, and most importantly, how you want to see the technology that you've created or helped to create get out into the world and into the hands of people where it can make a difference. As I mentioned, we're focused on you. Activate is a nonprofit organization. We charge no fees, and we do not require equity in order to participate in the fellowship. We are focused on physical scientists, so people who are making things, who are bringing a physical innovation out into the world. And we do look for folks who hope their company will make a positive impact on the world. Since today we're talking about carbon management, one of the big areas that we're looking for positive impact is around the climate change crisis, but we also have fellows working in other spaces, including health, agriculture, and computing. What does the Activate Fellowship provide? So we look to provide you with the time and funding necessary to really dig deep into the first stages of customer discovery, research, getting your product, we say usually from 0 to 1, and give you time to do that in a way that really works best for you. We provide a living stipend of $80,000 to $110,000 a year, plus travel, health, and relocation allowances. In addition, the company receives a $100,000 recoverable grant specifically for research and development. And the company has access to it, though it is not required to take at least $75,000 in flexible capital in the form of safe notes. In addition to this funding, we surround you with an expert community. You are, of course, in a community with other entrepreneurs and our alumni, our growing alumni network. You also have the Activate team, including our managing directors around you, to provide our own expertise and counsel. And we have built an unparalleled network of other scientists, engineers, technologists, and business people that we help to connect you to throughout your fellowship. We then provide tools for education. We have both in-person and virtual options for learning more about becoming a scientist turned founder. We have workshops that you can sign up for focused work on more intensive areas, and many other professional development opportunities throughout the year. And in each location, we work with the local community to understand opportunities for accessing lab, and other space needs for startups so that we can help you navigate through those first few steps of getting yourself up in the world. This model works. We had started in 2015, and we have over 188 fellows who've created 145 science-based companies. Funding is not the only metric that we track, but the fact that they have been able to raise $1.3 billion in follow-on funding is an indication that the work they do during their time at Activate demonstrates the capacity for a growing business and draws people into them. Activate is all over the country. So we have 4 active communities now in Berkeley, Boston, and New York. We have physical communities. We also have our Activate Anywhere community, which allows science entrepreneurs from any other part of the country to participate in the program. And this year, we're very excited to launch our Houston program. So they are accepting applications for their first cohort as part of this recruitment cycle. And with that, I will pass it over to Erin. And Erin, just go ahead and let me know when I should advance the slides.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that overview, Eva. And welcome everybody. We're so excited to have you here. As Eva mentioned right at the beginning, my name is Erin Lindgren. I am a partnerships manager at Activate. And what that means is I get to work on building a community. So Eva mentioned that as kind of a core pillar of what we do here at Activate. And so part of my job is to help build up a community and ecosystem around carbon management to help recruit more fellows working on carbon management solutions into our portfolio, but also support our current fellows and make sure that they're going to be as successful as they can be. So we can go to the next slide. Eva mentioned we've had tons of success generally as an entrepreneurial fellowship focused on hard tech. And a few years ago, we realized that we really wanted to kind of take that successful model and aim it at carbon management technologies that lots of times need even more additional support than traditional hard tech technologies, given kind of the uncertainties of markets and business models around some carbon management solutions. So that's what we've done. And so over the past several years, we've really increased the number of fellows we have working on carbon management solutions and are trying to support them to make them successful. And I know this is somewhat of a nascent area and the nomenclature is a bit all over the place. So at Activate, carbon management means something very specific. And it's basically a compilation of the 5 following buckets. It is CDR, so carbon dioxide removal, point source capture, utilization or conversion, storage, and MRV, measurement, reporting, and verification. So when we say carbon management, we were referring to kind of one of these types of technologies. Right, next slide. Okay, and now on to the fun stuff. So what do we do kind of as a partnerships team to help support carbon management fellows at Activate? We really try to foster that sense of community. And here's a great shot from an event that we hosted 2 weeks ago now in Pittsburgh at the FEM NETL carbon management review meeting. And so we hosted a nice networking event post one of the sessions and really tried to bring together leaders in this space, our fellows, other entrepreneurs in the space, other companies who have been around who are starting to get interested in the space, investors, et cetera, to really smash all these people together in the same room, get them mingling and talking about how we can accelerate commercialization of these types of technologies. And so this was some really great feedback we got from one of our fellows that I think really sums up what it is that we try to do. We try to get folks kind of in all of these separate buckets talking to each other and making these connections and understand how can they work with each other to, not only better support our fellows and get their tech to market quicker, but how do we get the market developed quicker and kind of lift up the ecosystem as a whole? So this was just an example of a type of event or a type of support that we would provide within the carbon management ecosystem. Next slide. And this is a non-exclusive list of other things that we've been doing over the past few years. Other types of partners that we've been working with. That first notch is the picture that you saw before, but we've also hosted smaller and more closed-door sessions with Noah Deitch, who was featured in that photo, Naeem Merchant and Gianna Amador of Carbon Removal Alliance, where the fellows that we had in New York were able to kind of sit down with them and over lunch and present their technologies and get some advice from them on kind of where in the federal government should they be seeking support and help. We've also partnered with a variety of other organizations supporting carbon management. You'll see them listed at the top. The DAC Coalition, CDC, Open Air. In addition, we really helped Carbon Unbound launch their first successful summit in the spring of this year and had some fellows and and also Andrew, our managing director, participate in that amazing conference focused on carbon removal. We do more low-key events in New York on a regular basis with some of those groups. And then really exciting stuff. We just announced, was it earlier this week or last week, that 3 Activate teams were selected for Frontier's most recent purchase cycle. And some of that is due just to the amazing quality of our fellows and the work that they do. But in addition to that, we've worked really hard over the past 2 years to develop a relationship with Frontier to develop a second tier for pre-purchase agreement. So for teams who may not qualify for the full $500,000 pre-purchase agreement, Frontier and Stripe really want to support kind of the nascent entrepreneurs that Activate is working with. And so we've developed kind of another product, which is a $100,000 pre-purchase agreement that basically our fellows are only eligible for, and it's another way for them to get access to that funding and also signal to the market that these really well-known companies like Stripe and Frontier are excited about what they're doing and are kind of willing to back them. Oh, and then I guess it's on to Activate New York.
Thank you, Erin, and sorry about the spoiler alert for Andrew's slides there, guys. But we also have on the call Andrew Chang, who is the managing director for Activate New York. So Andrew, if you want to come off mute, I'm pretty sure I saw him, and he will walk us through the next set of slides.
Thank you, Eva, and hi, everyone. I'm Andrew Chang, and I'm a pleasure to be here today to talk more about our Activate New York ecosystem and community. So I'll wait until you move to the next slide, Eva. Thank you. So that Activate New York, our focus, as you already heard a lot from Eva and Erin, is really about how do we support the pioneering and needle-moving entrepreneurs such as yourselves in moving these industries forward, these nascent industries forward. And how do we do that is we partner with a lot of different organizations, both federally, nationally, and then locally. On the ground here in New York State, we have a great partnership with NYSERDA, as well as Columbia University, that are more of our anchor partners, but we've been expanding that across New York State, both within the city and Long Island, as well as upstate. And we also are now broadening that to other regions as well. And our goal is to really help a lot of the companies that are pioneering new breakthroughs in all types of technologies, from the energy storage side of things and biomanufacturing. But we do have this concentration around carbon management, whether that be the carbon removals, all the different types of drawdown technologies, utilization pathways, and storage mechanisms, as Erin already alluded to. And what we do is we help a lot of the companies here establish their roots. We help them basically build a strong foundation for success, which may start with having a good cap table, which we can talk more about, the ownership equity that you will have and some of your co-founders may have, the process for negotiation with your tech transfer if you have IP that you need a license from the university, and then of course, getting access to laboratory space so that you can continue to mature this technology, build those prototypes, and then find some of those first partners that can help you deploy some of the prototypes that you're building. And so this is an example right here of our wonderful portfolio company, Vicarb, which is deploying, this picture here, it shows them deploying the very first, world's first real-time measurement of carbon removal in water. They have a novel technology that can, in real time, measure the pathway for CO2 from dissolved CO2 in ocean water or river water to bicarbonate to precipitate. And so we're excited that we had that they did that, and that they partnered with Governor's Island here in New York City to get that off the ground. They have a number of other pilots across the state as well. And finally, what we do here, our goal is to try to make it as easy as possible, although we recognize it will be very hard to build a hard tech company. And so our goal here is to reduce a lot of that friction, um, to get access to the last phases we talked about, as well as to have first meetings with various investors in the space, in the hard tech, in the decarbonization space, as well as to industry partners that are leaning in to partnering with startups. So let's go to the next slide. And then, so what is, I talked a bit about community. What does that look like? That is a commitment to connecting with all of our other Activate Fellow companies every other Thursday. So the way that we have it broken down is on these Thursdays, we will meet as a community. We will be coming together. It usually kicks off with lunch, and then we have a speaker, and then a number of times we have a bunch of one-on-ones for the speaker, and then we can finish that off with a happy hour, a small networking session. Sometimes it's a big one that we do with ecosystem partners, and sometimes it's smaller that we do with our community and our speakers. And we've been able to attract some of the world's best investors in climate, as well as some of the most exciting pioneers in carbon management and in building the next generation of climate tech companies. So you may have seen, just a couple slides ago, the co-founder of Heirloom. They recently raised, I think, $55 million in funding, and then they were the recipients of the new DAC hub, that $600 million award that they're sharing with another company. But these are the types of entrepreneurs, founders, investors, and ecosystem partners that we can attract to our community to learn from and engage with, and we've been very, very fortunate for doing that. Lastly, I'll just say that New York, has become a bit of a hub for climate and carbon management. There is more and more carbon management organizations. There's the Direct Air Capture Coalition. There's the Carbon Business Council. There is the Columbia CDI, the Carbon Development Initiative. So we partner with all of these organizations, and there's a new carbon management conference that's going to be in a couple of weeks here in October. So more and more we see in the carbon management space. There's a lot of gravity here in New York and New York City, and a lot of that also has to do with the leadership that New York State has been pioneering across the state as well as locally. Here in New York City, we have the first carbon tax that's going to go into effect next year, Local Law 97, that's putting a price on carbon. And so a lot of this is attracting a lot of the right talent and capital to move this industry forward.
Great. Thank you so much, Andrew, for that overview of the New York Fellowship. So I'm going to stop sharing at the moment. And Kerrigan, if you could pin Rob and Julian. And we are going to hear from two of our fellows who are working on carbon management. And so, Rob, we'll start with you just to share a bit about yourself and your experience so far at Activate.
Absolutely. Happy to do it. And thanks for having me. So my name is Rob Moak. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Tensora and part of Activate New York cohort 2022. So Tensora is a storage verification company. So we verified the storage of CO2 in the subsurface, but I got my background in geology and environmental consulting. And then I went to grad school at Clemson University, where I pursued a PhD in environmental engineering in earth sciences, where we studied some of the risks associated with injecting CO2 underground and storing it there. We developed technologies to help reduce those risks. So as part of Tensora, we're commercializing that into a company that's helping make CO2 storage much more safer and more affordable so that we can protect groundwater resources. So Activate has absolutely been fantastic with the partnerships team that they've been talking about here. They provide great introductions to large corporate partners, and they've helped provide introductions to a large energy company that we're in conversations with now to develop a series of pilots to demonstrate our technology and get this into the marketplace. And so they've been able to provide access to mentorship services to help you navigate those initial conversations and start to get to the contracting phase with a lot of these large types of organizations. They can provide great introductions to industry-specific mentors that can also help accelerate those types of conversations, and then all kinds of resources for helping navigate the contracting phase, and along with just a host of other great ecosystem partners, from the program managers to the government agencies to philanthropists, venture capitalists, investors. It's just a truly comprehensive ecosystem and supportive services to help you accelerate your business. That's been absolutely transformative for us so far.
Great. Thank you so much, Rob. And I will switch us over to Julian, who will share a little bit about Banyu Carbon and their experience so far with Activate.
Hey everyone, so I'm Julian Sachs and I'm part of the 2023 Anywhere cohort, and my company that I founded with my longtime academic collaborator, Alex Gagne, is called Banyu Carbon, and we are a carbon dioxide removal company. We've got this nifty process that we can use to remove carbon from the ocean using a light activated chemical. It's a simple process, very low energy, and we're a little bit different than most of the fellows that you'll probably meet in these panels, and probably most of you. I'm in my 50s. My co-founder Alex is in his 40s. We're both tenured faculty at the University of Washington, professors of oceanography. And we had this ongoing research project studying ocean acidification and its impact on coral reefs. And something that came out of that like 9-year research project was, wow, could we actually use what we're doing here to try to simulate late 21st century carbon levels on a reef to do carbon dioxide removal? And so we developed some technology, and it looked promising. We formed the company, and we applied to Activate because we're faculty. We don't know anything about running companies, entrepreneurship, etc. And let me just say that it's been a whirlwind. We started our fellowship in June, just a few months ago. I've already learned so much from this amazing community that I hope you all consider applying to. We are on leave from our faculty positions, and if everything continues the way it's continuing to progress, we're quite likely to leave our faculty positions, because we first and foremost want to reduce carbon levels in the atmosphere, and most people, including us, are convinced that the private sector is the best way to do that. So that's our background. Let me see what else you guys were wanting. Yeah, so, okay, so how has Activate shaped our entrepreneurial experience so far? Well, I think I'm going to echo some things that Rob said. They've made introductions. One thing that's really tangible is they made an introduction to a California utility, SoCal Gas, actually, that we're now in discussions with to host our field pilot next year, which is fantastic. We would have been difficult to get in and speak to the right people there had it not been for Activate. Rob, I think, also mentioned that they've made introductions to potential investors who have made further introductions to other investors. And just within the last couple months, really, since we joined Activate, all of that's leading to sort of the imminent close of our seed round, which is oversubscribed. There's been tremendous interest, and we owe a lot of that to activate. They've advised us on how to negotiate with investors. There is such a deep bench of expertise in this activate management team. It's really a dream team. So if you're a scientist that wants to become an entrepreneur, I can't imagine a better place to be than in this community. Another specific thing they've done that's been really useful to us lately is they provide recommendations for patent agents and attorneys that are really best suited for our photochemical approach to carbon removal. And we've now hired one of those just within the last 2 weeks, which is awesome. And I think I'll stop there because I've probably gone longer than I should have.
Thanks, Julian. I think you went a great amount of time, and we appreciate you sharing your work with us. I'm going to just really quickly share my screen one more time for just a few more details. Just pulling this up. Bear with me, folks. And then we will open this up for questions, as well as get to any of the questions that we did not get to in the chat. Okay, great. So if you're sitting there and wondering how you might become or like a part of this wonderful program that Julian and Rob did such a great job of highlighting, I wanted to flag our cohort 2024 application timeline. If you think you might be interested, you can go to the website now and pre-register, which will make sure that you get emails as our applications open, other events, and as the deadline approaches. Applications will open on September 19th, so 1 week from today, and you can begin filling out the full application at that time. They will close on October 17th, so it's not a massively long application. You can definitely get it done in a month, but do not delay if you think that you might be interested to work on and get it submitted. Applications will go through a process of internal and external review from October to December, and we will contact folks who are chosen for video interviews at the end of December or the beginning of January. And then a subset of those folks will join us for a finalist week, and we will hope to move through all of our processes to get folks onboarded by June of 2024. So if you're on this call and, for instance, finishing a degree or thinking about when you might want to take the next step, I just want you to be aware that the application is this month, but there is about 9 months before the full-time fellowship begins. Upcoming events and more. I mentioned that applications will open. You can go to the website activate.org/events to hear about any other webinars. I know someone had asked about learning more about Berkeley, for instance. All the communities will have a specific webinar. We have some more general webinars and for different groups of interest. We also have virtual office hours, both general and then specific to carbon management. And these can just help you as you're working on your application to log in and ask specific questions of Activate staff. So you can find all of that on our website. FAQs, just before I jump to actual cues, if you are working on something that relates to methane in any of the ways that Aaron listed, so capture, removal, measurement, storage, or transformation, that does sort of fit within our carbon management bucket. If you work on carbon management and you're not interested in moving to New York, that's totally fine. As you see with Julian, we do have folks working on this who aren't in New York. We just have a concentration of carbon management in New York. Also, if you are inversely on this call, but not sure your project counts as carbon management, but you want to be in New York, that is cool too. We do have fellows, as Andrew mentioned, working in photo optics, working in energy storage, and working in technology across the spectrum. But as mentioned, the majority of fellows in New York are working on carbon management. So if you are interested in carbon management in New York, you will be surrounded by folks with a similar interest set. So I will stop there with preloaded questions, and I will stop sharing so that we can see the chat. I think we got answers to most of the questions. So if anybody wants to raise your hand with a question that hasn't been answered, and I will scan the chat. And Kerrigan, maybe, or Rick, maybe a question for you. activate fund fellows at nonprofit corporations. Does it need to be a business? This is probably in our FAQ. I don't know the answer off the top of my head.
Sorry, I missed it. What was the question? It was
does activate fund fellows at nonprofit corporations, like if they're scaling their work through a nonprofit versus a for-profit corporation?
I believe if they incorporate, they can have, there's different models that we have funded in the past. So I think that they can be an LLC or a 501c3, I think. I'm pretty sure the answer is that.
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
Great. Thanks, guys. I was pretty sure too, but not sure enough to just jump in and answer it. So I appreciate that. We will go with Ryan if you want to come off and answer and ask your question, and then we'll come back to the chat.
Sure. Thanks, Eva. So Ryan Kay from Promise Carbon, we're developing a novel means of carbon utilization or conversion. And I was just curious about the support for like finding lab space in New York City. We're based in Tucson, Arizona, and we have some lab space available to us here. But would be willing to make the relocation to New York to participate in the Activate program. But just curious about what support looks like in terms of getting lab space, getting certificates of insurance, et cetera.
Yeah, great question. So what we have done in New York is we've built relationships with some providers of lab space. That includes universities like Columbia and NYU. It also includes private folks with certain lab space actions, such as New Lab. And with the specific company, we work to understand your needs. We can sometimes, for some of those, we might have a discounted rate applied to Activate Fellows. For other of them, you would be paying market rate for the lab space, but we would help you to navigate the sort of the application and sorting it out, which is to say, in most of the cases you mentioned certificate of insurance, et cetera, the company would still be responsible for getting whatever is necessary to get in the lab. But the benefit of Activate having worked with other fellows and the other folks in your cohort having established labs in New York is that you can lean on their experiences, both to understand the quality and likely experience of any given lab, and then also to navigate the particular steps of getting in. So the support that we provide is mostly knowledge and information along the way, and in a few cases there's a modest discount associated with being an Activate Fellow. Yeah. Great. And Rick answered the question in the chat, which was, we had a question about whether someone could reapply with the same technology. The answer, just to reinforce what Rick said, is absolutely yes. You can apply. It's not automatically ineligible. But a pro tip is to show us the progress that you've made since you last applied. Yeah. And Joe, if you want to ask your question live.
Yes. I got two questions. Number one, program for faculty only, this company? And then secondly, we are engaged already with 3 utilities planting our biocrops on their sites to capture CO2, then converting the crops into biochar and sequestering the captured carbon in their sites through putting the biochar into the soil. Am I correct that this would be an acceptable activity under your program? Oh, and I also wanted to ask, do you have relationships with utilities with whom we might partner in New York?
Yeah, Joe, I'm sorry, for your first question, you mentioned something about faculty, but the sound had broken up a little bit and I didn't fully understand it.
Eva, I think he was just asking, do you have to be a faculty member to apply for the fellowship? And the answer to that is no. And Julian and his co-founder Rob are rare, or Alex they're rare exceptions to our model. We're so excited to have them. But most of our fellows are not faculty members. They're usually folks who have just completed PhDs or postdocs or have had years of experience kind of doing hard tech work.
And do you have utility relationships?
We do have some connections to various utilities that are part of our network, yes. So in similar cases, we would provide an introduction, and then from that point, you would pick up the conversation and take it forward. But we do have some connections with utilities in our overall network.
Thank you.
Anna.
Hi, thank you. Quick question. I understand from your FAQ that applying as a foreign national is possible in general to the Activate Fellowship, and I'm wondering if there's a considerable preference given to US citizens, and if it's like a small number of foreign nationals that you take, and secondly, if you provide assistance for the work permit that would be required in order to be in the US, since I read that would be yeah, obviously required in order to get the fellowship.
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. I really appreciate it. We do not have a preference for US citizens over foreign nationals in the program, but we do require that you have a plausible plan for getting permission to work in the US for 2 years, which is to say, like, fellows are not employees of Activate, and we do not directly sponsor visas. What we do have within our network are a number of foreign national entrepreneurs who've gone through various pathways. We actually had a webinar last year, and I don't know if we have the recording up, that potentially we could share for folks on like what some of those pathways were, but H-1B, O-1, the waiver of national interest. So you're probably familiar with them, but basically, as you'll notice a common theme here, what we are able to provide and support is the knowledge that we've gained by working with entrepreneurs over the years, and beyond that, it is sort of with you in terms of how you pursue. Yeah. I am looking at, I think that is Advit. Sorry if I'm saying your name wrong.
Yeah, that's correct, Advait. First of all, thank you for having these sessions. They're super helpful. And I wanted to ask, so we have developed a platform technology by which we can make a variety of biochemicals, but we want to initially focus on sustainable aviation fuel. Now, given that we could accomplish like the target 70% reduction in greenhouse and GHG emissions, would we like fall under the carbon management thing, or would we be taken into is it better to go for a more platform approach where we make different chemicals? So
yeah, I will take that question, and then Aaron or Andrew can jump in and support. Firstly, and this was reflected in another question. So to tackle the question of whether reduction counts as management, generally, if you're reducing the emissions of a process that does not count within our bucket of carbon management, we're looking for after the fact capture or removal, transformation, et cetera. So then it kind of depends on what your inputs and outputs are within your process. So if you're transforming, or if there's a way that it could be applied to transform, that might be different. What I would say is platform technologies are common within Activate. And so if your first area of focus for your business is carbon management or is aviation fuels, like whatever that is, you can call that out in your application, and then also highlight this is a platform technology with many other uses, and these are some of the ones that we're envisioning. So that's what I would say in terms of the platform, is that's fairly common, and generally what people do is focus on, here's our theory of what our first market or first iteration will be, and then and that's where more of the detail is, and then here's a summary of some of the other ways that could be applied. Andrew, Aaron, anything I missed there?
I think that's exactly right. Like, without knowing more about your technology, it's hard to know if it's carbon management or not, if you're, actually converting CO2 into SAFs, et cetera. If yes, then it's utilization. If no, then it may not fall into the carbon management bucket, but sounds like it's amazing. And you're working on something incredibly innovative, and this could be a good program to support you. So just want to reiterate that, yes, we're talking about carbon management in this specific webinar, but Activate supports a plethora of other types of technologies. And even if you're not falling within that bucket, like, you should really, still consider applying to the program.
okay, thank you.
Thanks. I'm going to quickly answer one question in the chat because other folks may have it. Connie asked where in New York City we're physically based. Our offices, the Activate office is just above Grand Central in Midtown Manhattan, and we do have hot desks, and there are some call rooms and fellows to get access cards for the building. Most fellows then do, especially as they start to have a team, set up office or lab space in other parts of the building. So the expectation or requirement is not in any way that you'd be in Manhattan 5 days a week, but the office is available as a space for you to work. And then we have folks who are based in Brooklyn, who are based up toward Columbia, who are based out in Queens. So it's sort of, we have one in Newark. So basically, you set your business up where it makes the most sense for your business. Programming and Activate staff can be found happily on top of all of the train lines at Grand Central. And then I will go to Alok. Oh, I think you are muted.
Can you hear me now? Yes.
Yes, go for it.
Okay. Thank you. So I have a company in St. Louis, Missouri, which is a LLC company. We have developed biologics which can have a shelf life more than 2 years, and we are looking at carbon sequestration potential from these organisms. We have 2 years trial data from those, and basically we are going to be moving to Binghamton and New York, and basically setting up our research base there as well, besides being in St. Louis and Columbia. My question is that how, being a permanent resident in the country, how can I be taking advantage of this opportunity, and how we can go forward? I really like the presentation made earlier. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much. I think in terms of how you can go forward, if you really liked it and you think that you want to submit an application, then you should go to activate.org/apply. And those will officially open next Tuesday, and you can get started and submit your proposal for how you'd like to move forward. If the question was permanent residents, because they're legally permitted to work in the US, there are no special considerations there relative to citizens. And then you mentioned Binghamton. I will say, in terms of folks who are located, Binghamton is about a 3 or 4 hour drive from New York City. And so some folks who have been upstate have opted to be part of the New York community. There's then an expectation that you would come to New York City every 2 weeks for in-person programming. But if you're building work upstate, then that may work for you. And then secondly, we do have the option of our anywhere community. So if your physical base is more than 50 miles away from one of our physical communities, you're eligible for the remote community. So if you would prefer to stay in St. Louis, or even if you're shifting to upstate New York, but you don't want to come to New York every 2 weeks, that would be an option for you.
Thank you.
And we will go to Louis or Louis.
Louis, but you can call me lots of different things. I had the nickname of Franny when I was in the military, so I'm used to everything. I'm claiming that my technology of taking cargo containers and strapping them together to make a huge platform at the rate of about 2,000 miles a year here in Boston, where I'm trying to apply for Boston Act, if I used it to cover over the Pacific Ocean, and I had this platform such that everybody that I've heard so far, or anybody in the future, wanted to attach their structure to my floating structure, if I'm claiming that I have a possibility of controlling global warming, would that be too much of a claim in my Activate proposal?
I can take this one. Hi, Louise. Thanks for sharing. The way that I was positioned this is to talk high level about your vision for the technology and the company, the impact that you think it will have, but then also show us any data, any traction, any progress that has highlighted steps that you have taken to de-risk the technology, to de-risk the market, to de-risk, the team, all of those things, so we can get a sense for the progress that you've made.
Progress that I've made so far is my inventions were used to start Star Wars and do superconductivity at room temperature connectors that were used in the military programs. Now I want to apply that by taking regular cargo containers, waterproofing them, airproofing them, so they're a 4-ton brick of steel that can hold up 80 tons of buoyancy, and stringing them together just like you would on a ship, using our dry dock cargo container loading ship structure, and produce this. Now, nobody will believe it until they actually see it. This is like Dayton, Ohio, Wright Brothers bicycle shop, 1902. So I've heard lots of people tell me it's crazy. Lots of people say they don't float. Well, excuse me, ships float. They're made out of steel. But the biggest deal is if I generate this in the right way, I can hang lobster cages underneath and I can grow 50 times more lobsters in, say, 100-foot water. And I can have platforms that generate a gigawatt of energy using the wind towers that are stationed on it. At the same time, I have electricity that'll grow hydroponics on the inside of the building. And then I have the train system that's electrified, or a trolley system that would be something like.
Louis, I'm sorry, I'm gonna cut you off there just for a minute because
sure.
I know that we have
Absolutely.
other folks with questions.
Yes.
I think at a high level, like I appreciate you going into detail with us on the phone. I think what Andrew provided in terms of the structure that he recommended for the application, we definitely recommend. So, you know, again, the high level vision, digging into your technology and then showing us what is the proof so far. You mentioned it's hard to believe. That's normal. We are working at stuff on the frontier, but try to make that case as best you can in the application. I'm just going to pause us from diving deeper into any individual technology on the call, if that's okay.
I understand, but since he asked the question, I was putting out there to hear the group. If the group says, you're crazy, well, then I understand I'm applying to the wrong place. If my statements go, wow, that might work, that gives me a much better sense of how my argument's going and my proposal is going. So that's why I was asking. Thank you.
Yeah, I hear you. And I appreciate it. I just want to make sure. I know we have Nicholas with his hand up, so we're going to shift over to the next question.
Yeah, this is more of a Activate application general question. I noticed there's a nominate, form on the website. I've had calls with like 3 or 4 Activate fellows at this point. I think, it seems like such a great program, so I'm definitely going to apply. Should I also be thinking about who I should ask nominations from? And if so, how are those weighted and what do you guys look for?
That's a great question. So the nominations are actually a way to get people into the pipeline. So there are ways that people who know Activate well might recommend someone that we should reach out to over email and invite to something like this. They don't weigh into the application. When you put your application together, we will ask you for references. And later on, if you make it to the finalist stage, we will reach out to those references. And we do consider those in the application. But the nominations or having additional nominations do not affect your chance of success at application.
Perfect. Thank you.
There was a question from Mehdi. If you are located within 50 miles of New York community, but our technology does not directly, isn't carbon management, can we apply to another community? So because New York does accept non-carbon management applications, if you're building your business in the New York City region, I would strongly encourage you to apply to the New York program. As mentioned, we do have a couple of fellows in the program now who are not working on carbon management, although many of the fellows are. And the ratio of fellowships, that changes a little bit every year. It's not a fixed number. It's slightly more than half our carbon management, but that depends slightly on some sponsorship and administrative things on our side, and also on the caliber of the individual applications that come through every year.
And Eva, I would just chime in and say that, yes, go to New York. And if you want to build your company in New York, you should apply to Activate New York. But that mileage restriction only applies to Activate Anywhere. So even though you live within 50 miles of New York, you would also be eligible to apply to Berkeley, Boston, or Houston.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. And one important thing is, if you are thinking about communities, you also have the opportunity to check a second community. And Kerrigan or Rick, please chime in if we're doing more than 2 this year. But essentially, it's to your benefit to think about if you are genuinely willing to build your business in more than one place. It does not in any way disadvantage you to indicate that on your application. It will advantage you actually, because it means that if your preferred community opts not to advance your application, then your secondary community will have an opportunity to take a look. And because our selection committees are different people looking for slightly different things, you may end up having success with your secondary community. So I would encourage you. Rick's come off video to let me know how that's changed since last year, so please go for it.
That's okay. Yeah, we did do that last year. We changed a little bit this year with our new application system. We are actually going to be having folks rank as many communities as you want. So if you want to rank all all 5, you can. You would just have to put a justification in on why you're choosing that, and with the intention that you, if selected, would relocate to a community if it's in residence. But you can rank as many as you want.
Thank you so much, Rick. Other questions? For the person who suggested in the Slack, Activate Detroit, we are considering other future in-person options. I will say we have a couple of our Anywhere teams who are located in Madison. It's not quite Detroit, but they're and some in Illinois. So we're getting a little Activate Midwest action. Aaron is Illinois based, so appreciate it. I love Detroit. I'm for it. Other questions? Oh. Can a PhD student apply to the fellowship if the research is carbon capture and aligns with the PI? So if you are currently in your PhD program, but you are either planning to complete or leave along the timeline of the fellowship, and if you've already met the technical requirements, it is very common that PIs will be a co-founder or a advisor on a board of a new company. However, what we would want to see is that you're ready to start a full-time fellowship by June of 2024, because being a full-time student and running a company, I think as Julian alluded to, running a company is not something that can be done in your spare time. And so so in terms of, can I be currently a PhD student? Yes, you can, as long as you meet the other eligibility requirements. Can I do the fellowship while I continue my PhD? You're probably going to need to pause it. Other questions?
There was just one more in the chat about relocation funds.
If you are not within 50, so yes, we do have a small relocation stipend. So if you apply to a program and you are not within 50 miles of it and you are accepted to that program, Activate will provide a one-time small relocation fee. It's a few $1,000s. I don't want to quote the number in case it's changing, but yeah, it's not a massive relocation amount, but it's enough to help. Yeah.
I have another question, sorry. You mentioned earlier that in order to apply, there's a big focus on showing an initial sort of scientific or technical traction. I was wondering if there's also a weighing possible if, for example, you have done more on the market validation piece and sort of customer development angle, but haven't done prototype development yet because, in my case, for example, funds were missing, or sort of time just hasn't been there. And secondly, then does sort of the time of the application, the 9 months that it takes to make a decision, influence or can results during those 9 months influence the outcome of the application as well? If we say, we don't have this milestone achieved on October 9th or whenever, but we may have it in March.
Yeah. Andrew, do you want to take that one? I could take a swing at it, but I feel like you'll do better.
Sure. That's a really good question. So first of all, in the application, I would try to be explicit about what are the technical risks that you are planning on de-risking. What does that plan look like? And then through the course of the application process, communicate your progress. Are you meeting those milestones? Are you ahead of schedule, behind schedule, performing under? All of that is important as we continue down the application process.
Great. Reading out one in the Slack about if you already are in the middle of an SBIR, if the fellowship is still feasible. So yes, provided that nothing about the SBIR would prevent you from working full-time on your company. It's very common that folks who've gotten some early government support, including SBIRs, but also including other types of non-dilutive funding, apply to Activate. If there would be something about the SBIR that would limit your time invested in your company, then that would be a conflict to explore, but there's nothing that prohibits. Our one eligibility on funding is if the company has raised more than $2 million in dilutive funding, so government funding is excluded from that calculation, then we would just judge your company to be a bit too far along the investment pipeline for Activate to be the most helpful, and so those companies are excluded. But if you have received government grants, even currently active ones, that does not prevent you from applying. Oh, and thank you, Rick, for clarifying that it's 70 miles and not 50. Awesome. Well, we are 1 minute ahead of time, so I am going to take that 1 minute to say thank you very much to Aaron, Andrew, to Rob and Julian, and also to Rick and Kerrigan for being here to make sure that I give you all the correct answers to your great questions, and for generally facilitating so much of our recruitment process. For everyone who joined us today, thank you for your time and your interest in Activate. We really wish you the best of success in all of your endeavors. We would love to see you apply to Activate, and we would love to see you be successful. We are also big fans of the whole ecosystem. So if you come away from this call or the process feeling like Activate's not the right fit for you, we still wish you all success in your incredible work developing your technology and getting it out into the world. And we're glad that there are people like you working on these problems. So thank you so much for your time, and hopefully we will be in touch soon.